sure.
Before the press conferences even start. I mean, we could talk for 45 minutes just about how atrocious the defense is.
He's just picking the big guys. Jordan Mailata, he's huge. He'll be good later on. Josh Sweat, he's tall as hell and strong. Let's get him. We'll figure him out. It's working.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media. We're live, as always, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. You know the drill. Smash that like button, smash that share button wherever you're watching, Facebook or Twitter or Twitch, YouTube. You know what I'm talking about. Get that shared out so everybody can interact. And make sure you interact with the show on Facebook and YouTube with your comments. I'll interact with them. I'll answer them. Best way to get involved is to head over to the DSM Media YouTube page. Click that subscribe button while you're there. Turn the notifications on. There's that little bell on the page there. Make sure you click it. It lets you know the next time DSM Media is live. You don't want to miss a minute of the action. And then I can easily just put your comments like that one that I have preset up there. Super Bowl baby for the Eagles. And that's the easiest way to interact with the show. My name, Phil Stifle here. You can follow me on Twitter at Beard and Knowledge. We got a jam-packed show today. Lots to talk about on Football Friday. So,
are you ready?
That's right. So, are you ready? That's what we got. No, it's not Monday yet, George. It's not Overreaction Monday today. I just wanted to put that comment in there just to get it set. So today it's Football Friday. I am running solo, so your comments will be, helpful and needed today to keep the conversation going. But we're going to talk a bunch of different stuff. We're going to briefly, because really there's not a whole hell of a lot to talk about Eagles Cowboys this Sunday or Saturday night. We're going to go over the entire NFL playoff picture and the games that are the most meaningful this week. What games to look for? We're going to talk a little bit about that. I took some mailbag questions from a few people on Twitter, so we are going to attack those as well. Answer those questions. They're just more general football questions, but we're going to get into each and every one of them that I can, and then a quick Sixers preview at the end, just because the Sixers do play the Spurs tonight. But let's talk first Eagles Cowboys. It's Week 18, first time we've ever had to say that in the NFL. We really don't know much from Nick Sirianni. He still refuses to give a direct answer on whether he's playing his starters, and we talked about it a little bit yesterday. Whether they should and whether they shouldn't play anybody. Mike McCarthy has been pretty adamant saying that he will play his starters this week. I'm not sure that that's the right idea even for them, but go ahead. If you want to play your starters, Mike McCarthy, if you want to risk your guys, that's fine. But I think by reading the tea leaves and by reading what Nick Sirianni has said specifically, which is nothing specific, it leads me to believe that a majority of the important players on offense and defense will not be even suiting up, not just not dressing or playing, but not suiting up in this game. You got multiple offensive linemen on COVID list. You got multiple linemen injured and banged up. You got the Kelseys, the Johnsons of the world that could use the rest. Jalen Hurts still does not have 100% ankle. What good is playing these guys really do? I know there's the argument saying that the Eagles haven't really beaten anybody yet this year. They haven't really shown any dominance, but it doesn't matter. We're in the playoffs. What happened in the past does not matter at this point. What matters is being as close to 100% as any football team can be once you get to the playoffs. So, going out there and playing Jalen Hurts on Sunday or Saturday night, what does it really do? It really is just a complete and total waste of time. What's up, Scotty? Thanks for checking in, George. Everybody that's checking in on YouTube, appreciate you checking in here. There really is no positive that comes from playing these guys. We've been a slow starting team. Some people say, we'll play them for the first half or treat it like a preseason game. Well, I'm treating this like the fourth preseason game, which means these guys don't even dress. Because why would you risk it? Some people say, well, they're, play them for a half. Well, we've played awful in the first half of most football games, even against bad football teams. So why would you take that chance? Going out there and having Jalen Hurts have a slow start again, then pulling him from the game because he's played his X amount of snaps you want him to get, that's just going to kill even more momentum that they have at this point. So honestly, at this point, I see literally zero benefit from playing any of these guys. I don't even want them dressed. I'm not even playing Gardner Minshew for the whole game. I'm getting him some snaps because he's the second. You want him God forbid something happened to Jalen Hurts in the playoff game, you want him, at least a little bit more fresh and ready to go. He's only had one game worth of snaps this year, but I'm not even playing him the whole game. I'm treating this game like the fourth preseason game. I am, running out third stringers. I'm getting Andre Dillard a full game of live NFL action. I'm Sean Bradley, who's been playing on special teams. I'm getting him time at linebacker. Zach McPherson, young cornerback that we drafted this past year. He's getting a start for me this year. We've traded for and picked up like 19 different young cornerbacks. They're the guys, Slay, Nelson, Maddox. They don't even see the field. They don't even have pads on the sideline. Javon Hargrave, Fletcher Cox, those guys, don't want them anywhere near the field. Some of these guys, I would even say don't even put them on the field or the locker room. If one of these guys has COVID and it spreads to the locker room, I don't want any risks whatsoever going into preparation next week for whoever it is we play in the first round of the playoffs, whether it's Tampa Bay, which is the most likely scenario, Dallas, the Rams, any of these guys, the Cards. We could play all these different teams. I am putting literally nobody at risk this week. And I know one of my mailbag questions addresses that, what can we learn from this game? And to answer Don's question on that, what I'm learning this week is what you would normally learn from a fourth preseason game. What do these depth pieces really potentially have and stuff like that? I'm not taking any chances at all. It'd be funny when third strings play against Dallas and they come out on national TV with their best chance and to get noticed. There will be, absolutely agree with you. It's 100% on that, George. I'm not taking any chances whatsoever in this game. Like I said, we could bump up to the 6. Yes, our playoff, opponent is not locked or set right now. But honestly, at this point, if we're the 6th seed or the 7th seed, it does not matter. Whether we play Tampa, the Rams, the Cardinals, the Cowboys, it doesn't matter. We're going to be the underdog no matter what in those games. The chances, be funny when you all finally realize the NFL is fake. We're going to take that right off of there. Absolutely. I mean, I need the comments, but I need real comments and questions here. So I mean, that's really, it's a shame because as an Eagles fan, I'm 41 years old. I've been booing and hating against the Cowboys my entire life. That is my goal, is to hate on the Cowboys. That's what we do. But this week has like literally no juice whatsoever, and it's unfortunate because I want juice. I want to get excited for an Eagles Cowboys game, but you just can't. What would be funny is if Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys come out and play their stars in the first quarter, first half, the whole game, and the Eagles' third stringers come out and put a whooping on the Cowboys. You better believe I'd be super excited about that, 110%. But that's just not the case. So there's really, let's read this comment from JT, the NFL really. I'm just gonna leave that comment off to the side, not even put it up on the screen. So that's where I'm at with this Eagles game. Honestly, I'm not worried. I'm not concerned. I just want everybody to come out of it as healthy and as safe as they positively can. Because I just don't want any excuses for this team come next week whenever the game depends to play, whether we play on Saturday, whether we play on Sunday, or even the Monday night wild card game, which I am not. I will repeat, I am not a fan of a Monday night wild card game because it definitely puts somebody at a disadvantage going the following week. In the next round of the playoffs, whether the Eagles making up a miraculous upset or not. So literally, I don't think I could ever spend less time on Football Friday talking about the Philadelphia Eagles. But that's where we're at. I mean, 9 minutes into the show, and there's nothing else really to say. We're just not going to. I mean, I'm going to watch the game. It's 8:15 Saturday night. I don't have to work early on Sunday morning. I'll watch it, of course, as I always do. But I will never be as unmotivated and uncaring as a game. Like I said, it is literally the fourth preseason game. We lost the fourth preseason game this year, but we're getting it back this week in week 18. And that's just that. That's just the way it is, and that's the way it's going to be. But there are a lot of other games that have meaning this week in the NFL. There are a lot of other games that, playoff, not just seeding, because there's a lot of playoff seeding at stake this week. It's less meaningful for the Eagles as it is for other teams. But there are actual spots up for grabs as well. So I've brought up some of these scenarios. I want everybody to be fully aware of the different things that could happen this week and determine which games you're focusing in on Saturday on Sunday, and what games mean the most. So in the NFC, playoff spots that are still up for grabs, there's one. It could go to the Saints or it can go to the 49ers. And I'm running solo today, so I'm talking and I'm reading my notes over here on the other computer screen here. So the NFC, one spot up for grabs, Saints or 49ers. This is the scenario. The Saints clinch if they win and the 49ers lose. The 49ers clinch that spot with a win or a Saints loss. So the 49ers control their destiny. The Saints do not. So let's look at these games here real quick. I gotta pull the schedule back up here. I got too many notes here to not read here. So the Saints play the Falcons on the road. Falcons pretty much meaningless. The 49ers play the Rams. So the 49ers have obviously the much tougher matchup with the Rams, but the Rams are more they're competing for the division title. They're basically competing for a home field game or a road game, whereas the 49ers and the Saints are fighting for their positional battle. So the Saints have the easier matchup against the Falcons. They can win that game. They should win that game. Falcons have pretty much packed it in for the season, but they still need that help with the 49ers. So it's going to be really interesting. If I had to guess, the Saints win that matchup. The 49ers, it'll depend on whether the Rams play 100% of their starters 100% of the game or not. If they do, the 49ers, I do not think can beat the Rams if they're really trying to win that NFC West title. So in that scenario, I believe the Saints take that final spot. But we've seen worse things. Also, so the Cardinals can clinch the NFC West with a win and a Rams loss. The Rams clinch the West with a win or a Cardinals. So again, the Rams control their destiny a lot more than the Cardinals do in that situation, where the Cardinals need multiple things. The Rams just need to win. So the NFC picture is a little simpler to figure out. Yeah, there's some, the Cowboys, who's going to be 2, 3, 4, 5, even 6 and 7, 2 through 7 could change drastically. But the odds say, one thing, that there's very little left on the line there in the NFC. So I'm saying the Saints clinch that final spot, which also means the Rams win the NFC West. That's how I see it playing out. So that's the easy part of it, the NFC. There's very little, to figure out other than playoff positioning there. Now the AFC, that's where it gets a little bit more interesting. That's where there's a lot more at stake. So first off, this is all via ESPN.com. I've got their website up here with their scenarios and all the different bursts that are up for grabs. So the Ravens could still make the playoffs. This is the most long shot of long shots that they need right now. This is why I also don't think that Lamar Jackson plays this week, because his ankle's bummed. Are you really going to risk this here? The Ravens need to win this weekend, but they also need a Colts loss, who they play the Jacksonville Jaguars, very unlikely. They need a Chargers loss, who the Chargers are playing winning in, and the Dolphins to lose, which the Dolphins are pretty much eliminated now, so they don't really care. So the Ravens need to win and have 3 different teams lose, one of which is a team that's going up against probably the worst team in football this year, the Jacksonville Jaguars. So that's a very unlikely scenario, but it's a long shot. We've seen worse. We saw the Jeff Garcia win and have 19 different teams lose, and it happened. So, it's possible, but it's extremely, extremely unlikely. So Ravens, although they're in it still, they got something to play for. Their odds are very slim. The Colts are one of those teams. There's 2 games in the AFC where the teams control their own destiny, and the Colts are one of them. All the Colts need to do is win, and they're in. And they're playing Jacksonville. They are a 15-point favorite against Jacksonville, and rightfully so. I'm not going to bring up the Carson Wentz aspect of it, because I think there's way too much talk of Carson Wentz online. Again, you would think now that we have that first-round draft pick, locked up, that we can move on from Carson Wentz. But there's so many people that just cannot move on from Carson Wentz. So I'm not going to talk about it. I thought about it before the show, what I would make as comments, and debate the fact that, it would be nice to see them get the first-round pick and them still get eliminated from the playoffs. Look, guys, Carson Wentz is gone. He's not an Eagle anymore. He will not be an Eagle again. It's time to move on. We got the picks. We got the first and the third now, not the second and the third. It's okay to move on. Yes, I said his name, but I'm just reminding people it's time to move on. It's okay to move on. Let's focus on the guys that we actually have here that want to play here. So the Colts win and they're in. Or they could lose the game. I don't know how they would lose to Jacksonville. I mean, that would be the way it could happen. But they if they lost to Jacksonville, they still could get in with a Steelers loss, a Chargers loss, and a Dolphins loss. So there is still that scenario as well. Excuse me. So Colts basically are in. I do not see them losing that game at all. So that's that scenario. Now the Raiders. The Raiders play the Chargers on Sunday Night Football. That's the game of the week, basically. The Chargers. If the Raiders win, they're in. If the Chargers win, they're in, because there's still 2 spots up for grabs in the AFC wild card race there. So Raiders versus Chargers, winner gets in. There is also these weird scenarios if they tie the Chargers and the Colts lose, that they get in. There's some really weird scenarios there, but basically the Raiders Chargers, winner gets in there. And then you come down to the Steelers game. If they win and the Colts lose and the Chargers Raiders don't end in a tie, again, Colts aren't losing to the Jaguars this week. There's a lot of different scenarios there. There's a lot of teams that are fighting for those last 2 spots in the AFC. But I really think it comes down to that Chargers Raiders game. And let me bring up the line on that game there. I think it's a 3-point Chargers game line. Sunday Night Football. I mean, they flexed the right game. It's the game right there of the weekend. Chargers are a 3-point favorite in Vegas. They're both 9-7 teams. Over under is 49.5, so it's probably going to be the highest scoring game of the weekend. It's the game that means the most. So it's pretty exciting to have the regular season close with such an important and great game. They did do a good job with that. I can't say that I think that all the other games being flexed are the right games or not. I'm not a big fan of the Eagles being flexed to Saturday night, because there's really no point to it. The Chiefs-Broncos game on Saturday night, really no point to it. The Chiefs could, get it, improve or hurt their playoff spot, but they're in and the Broncos are done. So, what's the point there? I think the NFL should have put some of the lesser games like the Bengals-Browns that, I guess the Bengals still have some playoff seeding. Packers-Lions, there's a game that could have been on Saturday. Bears-Vikings, Washington-Giants. You have a rivalry game that doesn't mean anything. You put some of those games on Saturday night if you insist to have the Saturday night games, because these other games all should be played at the same time. There's also a scenario and a discussion: should all the games on Sundays just be at one, or the final week of the season be 1:00 games? Or I saw somebody say just have all the games be at 3:00, so that West Coast, East Coast, a little fair. I agree with that as well. Yeah, Cowboys equal ratings. That's absolutely accurate on that. I do agree with you on that, and that's probably why that's the case. But anyway, so there is a lot of different scenarios going on in the NFL this week. There's a lot of different games with meaning, but the ones that mean the most are pretty much there. Those few games right there. So that's that. So there's a lot to play for this week. That's a pretty simple Football Friday. I wish there was more to talk about on Football Friday, but there's not. There's only so much going on this week, and there's so much. This 18th week, you really thought would have brought even more. The 7th playoff spot in each league would have brought more. It did bring a lot more teams into the conversation this year, but it is what it is. I'm still, just like I said, I'm kind of very blah this week on the NFL, just because the Eagles have literally nothing to play for, and I really hope Nick Sirianni does not make the mistake of playing these guys that aren't necessary to be played, and that everybody's healthy and ready to go for week 1 of the playoffs, which is next weekend. I can't wait to see the schedule come out. I can't wait to see, who we have to play. So I just can't wait till Sunday night's over, so that I have all the matchups ready to go for Overreaction Monday, and we can really dive deeper into that kind of stuff. Just bringing up my comments here on Twitter, just to make sure there's nothing new to discuss here. No, all right. So with so little, going on, I decided last night to put a question out there. I'm going solo on Football Friday, taking questions. So I got a long list of questions from people. I'm going to try to address them. Most of them are from George, my man. I love you, George. I appreciate all your questions, and they're great topics to discuss. My man Don Conway, a few other comments and questions in here. We're going to get them all into them in 1 second here. Yeah, talking nonstop for 20 minutes here. Going to lose my voice before I head on to the pizza shop today. Which, before I get into these questions, anybody out and about driving in the Philadelphia region, please be careful. It did snow. Out here in southern Chester County, it's only about 2 inches of snow, and the snow has already stopped for me. But I do know there are parts of the area that got 4, 6, 7 inches of snow. So if you have to be out and about, please be careful. Please be safe on the roads. And, if you don't have to go out, don't give the road crews time to, do their job and get, and get the roads cleared so that, the rest of the weekend we are clear to go. So anyway, let's get into these questions. All right, first question. A lot of fans have given up on Jalen Reagor. In your opinion, how long should we give a high draft pick time to show they can make it in the NFL? Talking generally in a stable environment, obviously case by case, blah, blah, blah. All right, so I wanted to address this question first because I know it says in general and not with Reagor, but this question's brought up because of Jalen Reagor and the fact that, George is a fan of giving Reagor time. Me, I say that Jalen Reagor will get another year because we know Howie Roseman's track record of not giving up on high draft picks or highly invested players too quickly. But I know a lot of people are ready to call him a bust. I know a lot of people are ready to move on from trade him for a bag of, peanuts, and I understand why there's frustrations there. But, it's really interesting part of the question was in a stable environment. And see, the funny thing is a lot of these highly drafted picks, especially quarterbacks that are drafted in the top 10, players in the top 5-10 of drafts, they go to unstable environments. You don't get drafted to a stable environment unless you're drafted in the 25th, the 28th, the 30th pick, Super Bowl, playoff contending teams that are just looking to add to their team to get to the next level versus are rebuilding. Now, occasionally you get a team like the Eagles getting Jalen Reagor in the 22nd pick, whatever it was, 21st pick. That, at that time when they picked them, they were a good team. They were trying to get better. They were trying to do something specific. But so many times these players go to teams that are so unstable. Look at Trevor Lawrence. Consensus, clear-cut number one player to be taken in the draft. Not the best player in the draft, but the consensus to be taken number one because quarterbacks go over one. He went to the most dysfunctional situation there with Urban Meyer in that Jaguars situation. Are we going to consider him a bust because they won 2 games this year? No, you obviously got to give him time. Look at Josh Allen. Josh Allen went to Buffalo's a strong team now. But when he got drafted there, I think he was taken 8th or 10th overall. He went to a really bad situation. And not only did he looked awful his rookie year. I was ready to say this guy's, no good. But I was smart enough to realize you got to give him time. Even his second year, he did not look that great. It took his 3rd year before he finally developed. We talk about Jalen Reagor in that 2020 wide receiver class. I know Justin Jefferson went after Jalen Reagor, but are we ready to give up on Jerry Jeudy? Jerry Jeudy hasn't had I think he was taken 14th overall. He hasn't had anything amazing, but he went to a situation where in Denver, where they still now, after 2 seasons, don't have a quarterback to throw him the football. Are we going to write him off as a bust? I know his numbers are better than what Jalen Reagor is, but they're not Justin Jefferson numbers. They're not even close to Justin Jefferson's numbers. They're not even close to CeeDee Lamb numbers yet. So, you kind of got to look at each situation individually. But a lot of these players that we consider busts early on, they're busts early on in their career. I mean, I look at Anthony Thomas a few years ago, drafted number 4 overall by the Giants. Anthony Thomas was clear-cut one of the best linemen in that draft. And he's just gone to a god-awful situation, probably one of the most dysfunctional, top 3 or 4 dysfunctional franchises there are in football right now. Gettleman, terrible. No quarterback there. You got to give these guys time. Yeah, we've seen J-Jaw for 3 years with 2 different coaching staffs. Is it safe to say he never lived up to the second-round billing? Absolutely. I think 3 years is about right, 4 at a push. That's fair. But these guys sometimes get drafted in positions that are wrong. J-Jaw shouldn't have been drafted in the second round. Jalen Reagor shouldn't have been drafted in the first round. You look at Matt Collins. I'm going to compare Arcega-Whiteside to Matt Collins. Matt Collins was drafted later in the draft. People consider him a bust at the Eagles, but now he's carved himself a nice niche in Miami. He's a special teams ace. When called upon, he makes big plays in the passing game when needed. As that 5th wide receiver. Arcega-Whiteside, because he was drafted 2nd round, because he was drafted before DK Metcalf, the Eagles fans put undue pressure on him. But I think at this point, the Eagles organization know what they have in him. A blocking wide receiver, a guy that plays special teams, a great team player. And that's the problem. As fans, we struggle to differentiate the two things. A front office manager or GM's mistake in drafting affects how we treat players. And I think that's the problem. We definitely need to understand when a player is misdrafted that A, we got to give them time, but B, some guys just aren't first-round talents. They get drafted. Look at quarterbacks. I mean, there are every single year. This past year, we had, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, all these guys go in the top 10 of the draft. They weren't all top 10. They weren't all first-round picks, in my opinion. But there's so much undue pressure put on them, all going to god-awful situations. Justin Fields, I made so many jokes about Ohio State quarterbacks not making it in the NFL. But not only did he go into the NFL way too soon and so much undue pressure, but he goes to a coach in Nagy that's a terrible coach at this point. That whole situation, he's set up to fail from second one. And, that when that situation happens in Philly, the fans can't differentiate that. And that's the problem. Jalen Reagor, he was injured his rookie year a lot. This year, new coaching staff, still hasn't really been able to find his footing. Now, if he's still struggling like this next year, a second year with this coaching staff, a second year with Jalen Reagor, okay. Maybe we can label him a bust, but he's a bust based off draft position. If Jalen Reagor was having the career he has right now, but was drafted in Quez Watkins' spot in the draft, we'd be saying, all right, we might have a building block for the future right there. And that right there to me is the problem. We need to get these guys, time to develop. I think it's also position by position. An offensive lineman, a defensive tackle, a cornerback, they can pick up the NFL game a little quicker. Quarterbacks, wide receivers specifically, are some of the toughest positions to develop in the NFL because normally those players go to the really bad teams. But an offensive lineman should be able to pick up pass blocking and run blocking pretty quickly. A defensive tackler or an edge rusher, because they're not called in the draft defensive ends anymore. They're called edge rushers. Edge rushers, I mean, if you're a skilled edge rusher, you should be able to make an impact right away. But a wide receiver, a linebacker, a quarterback, there's so many different assignments. If you're a rookie and you're put right into a Mike linebacker position, obviously it's going to take some time to develop that. So I think you have to judge each position by position. All right, so that was question one. All right, so question two, best game of the weekend. Obviously, I already said that. Chargers, Raiders. That's the game that has whoever wins that game is in. I already addressed that. Chargers are 3-point favorites on the road. I like to think the Chargers win that, but the Chargers have struggled a bit down the stretch. And don't sleep on the Raiders. I mean, they're fighting for their reputations there in Vegas. There, they had the whole John Gruden thing. The fact that they're still in the playoff hunt here, week 18, I think is talks volumes for Carr, their quarterback, and he's holding that team together, and their interim coach is doing a lot there. With a lot of the starters out, not playing this weekend for the Eagles, which we don't know that for sure, but that is most likely the case. Is there anything that we can learn or take away from this game against the Cowboys? Absolutely. Already addressed that. This is a game. I'm treating it like preseason 4. I want to see what Andre Dillard does. Is he going to start at left tackle for instead of Jordan Mailata? He should. Let's see what Andre Dillard does, especially if the Cowboys are playing some of their starters. I know Micah Parsons was added late to the protocols, so he might not play. But, things like that. Gardner Minshew, is he still going to be the backup quarterback, or should we try to trade him because he shows some value? Jalen Reagor is one of the few starters I would play. Get him some more playing time. Jonathan Hightower's already been elevated. What does Jonathan Hightower have? Kenneth Gainwell, Huntley, Kerryon Johnson, these guys from the running game, Kenneth Gainwell mainly. What do they have? I'm looking at that to see if there's any. Zach McPherson, if he's got to play against Cooper or CeeDee Lamb in the secondary, at least in the first half, can he hang? He might not be able to keep him under, shut him out or anything or put up Darius Slay type defensive numbers, but it'd be really great to see, what they're capable of doing. So that's what that game is there. All right, next question. It feels like Jeffrey Lurie has taken a step back this year and let his coach let the coach coach without interfering. Do you get the same sense? I do not, to an extent, get the same sense. Jeffrey Lurie always has his fingerprint on this team. He always is quietly telling this team what to do. Nick Sirianni, obviously, was hired, in my opinion, as that puppet coach to do what Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie want. But you don't see any years, even last year when the shit was hitting the fan with the Eagles and Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz, other years with Chip Kelly, you never hear Jeffrey Lurie talk midseason. Jeffrey Lurie I don't think I've ever heard him give a press conference. He gives his preseason press conference and he gives his end of the season press conference, and you rarely ever hear from Jeffrey Lurie. That does not mean he does not have his thumbprint going on with this team. What about the lack of analytics? I don't know. I'd have to think about that one for a second. But I'm telling you, Jeffrey Lurie is still fully, making decisions here. Yeah, he coaches by guts. Yeah, I'm sure he does that. But I'm still pretty sold on the fact that Jeffrey Lurie is pregame telling him, some stuff, and I'm sure Jeffrey Lurie's still making some of the calls on players, or at least telling Howie Roseman on some of the players to dress. I don't even think it comes down to Nick Sirianni's decision on what players dress this Sunday. If Jeffrey Lurie or Howie Roseman says that he wants to see the starters play, they're going to play, whether Nick Sirianni wants it or not. Now, mid game, if Nick Sirianni decides to pull them, that's the guts of the mid game decisions. But we see it. We saw it a week or two ago. With how the run game is obviously what's working. But yet, a couple weeks ago, we came out and ran the ball 1 out of the first 8 times. That's the Howie Roseman, Jeffrey Lurie wanting them to pass the ball. The theory and the story of Jeffrey Lurie pulling Doug Peterson aside a couple years ago. When they ran the ball in the wind, I think it was in Buffalo or Green Bay. Even though they had just won that game by running the ball heavily, the next game they came out passing because it's come out. It's been rumored that he was pulled aside, Doug Peterson, by Lurie and Roseman, saying, "We want you to pass the ball. I don't care. That's the way it works." So the fact that we keep deviating at the start of games away from the run game goes to tell me and goes to show me that Jeffrey Lurie is still, Howie Roseman is still, Green Bay. Yeah, that's right. That's right, Green Bay. I always forget because there was also that really windy game against Buffalo, and I guess that was the game that we really threw the ball more than we should have based off of the wet conditions. But yeah, I mean, I can't say that Jeffrey Lurie doesn't have his fingerprint on this team because when you see a running team, a dominant running team, come out and pass the ball 7 times out of 8 plays to start a game, and the one run play gets 12 yards, 11, 12 yards in a first down, but they keep going back to the pass, that tells me that the script, if they talk about the script that Nick Sirianni always has to start a game, that's Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman with their fingerprints all over that. And then after that, Nick Sirianni can go to gut coaching and just say, well, we had to make in-game adjustments, and that's why we went to the run game. That's a problem. I've said it before. If Nick Sirianni makes a run in these playoffs or even looks half decent, and then next year we get better and maybe win the division or something like that, that was the problem with Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson was hired as a yes-man coach. He gained confidence by winning a Super Bowl in his second season. And then a year or two into it, that clash because he had the confidence and now the pedigree to say, no, I disagree with what you say, Howie Roseman. I disagree with what you're saying, Jeffrey Lurie. That's where the beefs start. So if Nick Sirianni has too much success running the ball and we win and we make a run next year or whatever it may be, that's going to be the downfall of this coaching regime as well. So that's that for sure. All right, next question here. You have been very clear that you would like one of our first rounders move to 2023. Correct answer is 2. Yeah, I know. Where do you stand with the cap at the end of 2022? Would you be expecting them to move substantial amount of cap to the following year as well? Okay, so here's where I stand with the moving of the draft picks and the cap. We still have to try to improve this team. There's obviously a lot of holes on this team. The thought process of moving one of the picks to 2023 is as a backup plan if Jalen Hurts does not progress more. I'm not saying Jalen Hurts needs to win us a Super Bowl next year to lock down as the franchise quarterback, but if he doesn't continue to progress as a quarterback, you have that extra pick or 2, depending on who you agree with, to make a move for a young quarterback, make a trade, whatever it may be. But if you're not utilizing all your top end draft picks, first and second round picks this year, then you're going to have to utilize your cap space to get a wide receiver to improve the defense a little bit, because we got to be able to fairly judge Jalen Hurts. You've got to give him more weapons. You cannot go into next year with your starting 3 wide receivers being Devontae Smith, Jalen Reagor, and Quez Watkins. You cannot go into next year with Anthony Harris and Steven Nelson, key pieces. You can't go into next year with Stuart Bradley, with Davian Taylor, with all these Davian Taylor, T.J. Edwards, Alex Singleton. That cannot be your linebacker core. You need to upgrade this team so we can fairly evaluate Jalen Hurts, but also so we can fairly evaluate Jonathan Gannon, Nick Sirianni. So I'm not saying you've got to go all in and spend every cent of cap space and every single draft pick. You save something for next year, or 2023, just in case. But you better be able to utilize some of what we have, and we have a lot of assets. And I saw the cap space article come out and somebody posted something about cap space. It said we only had like $14 million in cap space. I thought we had somewhere in the neighborhood of $30 million, $35 million in cap space. I'm not sure. I think they did not take into account what's rolling over from this year into next. So I still think we have a decent amount of cap space. And Howie Roseman's always great with the cap. I mean, that's obviously what we know. He kicks the can down the road there. He keeps extending people, sometimes poorly, like the Fletcher Cox situation, or the Brandon Brooks situation and stuff like that. But that's what he does. You have to go all in to an extent this offseason so we can fairly judge Hurts, Sirianni, Gannon, and some of the other guys on this team as well. So it's really important in that aspect to utilize either your cap space or your picks, and in both scenarios, a little bit of both. All right, a lot of fans already want Jonathan Gannon gone. What, in your opinion, is a reasonable amount of time to give a coach? So we talked about draft picks, high draft picks, giving them a reasonable amount of time. What about with the coaches? All right, so coaching is pretty similar. Howie doing Howie things. Yeah, that's the answer to that. That's right. Always Howie doing Howie things. That's what he does. All right, so reasonable amount of time for coaching is the same thing for players. It depends on the situation. Jonathan Gannon, Nick Sirianni, they came to a 4-win team. Reasonably speaking, I know I've overreacted plenty of times saying fire Gannon, do this, do that. But reasonably speaking, and honestly speaking, what did this defense really have? They had a really strong front four, hypothetically on paper. Brandon Graham went down very early. Derek Barnett continued to regress. Now, there's a situation where you can call Derek Barnett a bust. A first-round pick in his 4th season, still barely making an impact. That's where you could see him. You can label him now after 4 years an edge rusher that still can't make an impact in his 4th year. A first-round pick, that's a bust. Now you could say it's time to move on from him. Absolutely. But what did Jonathan Gannon have? He's got Alex Singleton, not a good linebacker. He's a good 4th or 5th linebacker on a team. T.J. Edwards has shown some improvement. That's fine. Davian Taylor has shown little glimpses, but he wasn't healthy his rookie year. He hasn't been healthy his second year either. You've got a secondary with patched together secondary. McLeod finally starting to turn a corner, but coming off of an injury, a season-ending injury last year. He hasn't been at 100% till if he even is now, but he's finally starting to play a little bit better. Anthony Harris, he's not that great of a safety. Steven Nelson, a patchwork second cornerback there. You can't really judge Jonathan Gannon or coaches if they're put into a bad situation like this. It's a really, really tough situation there. So you got to give Jonathan Gannon more time. I know it's the unpopular opinion, the rough thing to say there, but you got to give him more time. You really, really do, because he's just not, he just didn't have the tools. And you see, even as the season goes along, as he gets more comfortable with the players he has, and as the players he has gained more confidence in themselves, you see a little bit more blitzing. You see a little bit more press coverage. It's not always 6. And then you also see the plays like last week where he had Fletcher Cox, the only man on the defensive line, and all 10 other defensive players, playing back. So, that was a stupid situation, a stupid, play call. But, you got to give him time. You have to judge the situation. And normally coaching changes happen on the bad teams. This is a bad team last year. So if anything, I know Jonathan Gannon gets a lot of flack, especially from me, but this team is 9-7, about to be 9-8, maybe 10-7 this year. I don't care from coach 1 all the way down to the lowest level, junior intern coach. It's a successful season for the coaching staff because they've been able to take a 4-win team and put them in the playoffs the next year. The non-overreacting person in me says, yes, give him more time. I can't disagree with that. You not only got to give him more time, you got to give him more time with some players. That's where you got to spend that cap space. You got to spend a majority of your draft picks. You got to give these guys real talent. You got to upgrade so many different positions on this team. And that's why you can't roll over much picks and cap into 2023, because there are still, if we're realistic, there's a difference between being a fanboy and being realistic. And being realistically speaking, and I'm sure I'll say fire Jonathan Gannon Saturday night after the game. If we get blown out, I'll just be like, get him out of here. I'm sure that overreaction in me will say that. Yeah, exactly. Don't ask me that don't ask me to be a realistic fan on Mondays, because that's when I have fun and that's when I overreact. All right, I got 2 more questions here. All right, so can you break down each playoff position opponent, whether you're worried? Yeah, I mean, whether you're worried about a team more on defense or offense, Tampa Bay, am I more worried about their offense or their defense? Dallas, same thing. Look, I'm going to answer this question super, super quickly and easily. I'm not worried about anybody's offense or defense in the playoffs. I'm just not. And the reason being isn't what you think. It's because I'm in bonus territory now. I'm in gravy. We went from a 4-win team to a 9-10 win team. We're playing playoff football. No one expected us. We start 2-5 as I predicted. We then went 5-2 as I predicted, and we're right where I expected us to be personally. But this is all gravy. The playoffs are gravy this year. I thought my original prediction was 9-8, and it would come down to having to beat Dallas week 18 to get into the playoffs as the division winner. I didn't think two teams from the NFC East would make the playoffs, but that's the case right now. This postseason is all gravy for me. I got asked, what am I looking for this week? Because the game's meaningless and a lot of players won't play most likely. I'm more concerned about what I see next week when everybody's back to playing. Even if we lose next week, how does Jalen Hurts look in that playoff scenario? How does Nick Sirianni's play calling look and progress? How slow of a start do we have? And is it the same mistakes that are, correctable and stuff like that? That's what I'm looking for in the playoffs. I could care less. Obviously I want them to win. Let's get that. Let me rephrase it. Obviously I want them to win. I want them to go to the Super Bowl, all that gravy. But this is all bonus time for me. Last year, week 17, the last week of the year, I remember doing the post-game show, after that Washington loss. I was like, it's done, I get an extra week to talk Eagles football versus offseason. If I could stretch talking offseason as long as possible, I'm a happy person. And that's what we get to do. So this is all gravy to me, so I don't really care about that. All right, and we got to end, obviously, the question-answer segment with, obviously a Howie Roseman question. Overall confidence level in Howie Roseman right now, taking into account cap management, drafting, trading, everything. Taking it all into look, again, just like Jonathan Gannon, the overreacting fan in me hates Howie Roseman. He does. The missing on DK Metcalf, the missing on Justin Jefferson. Yes, I want to overreact just like everyone else. But realistic fan in me, realistic guy that likes to be unbiased when he does his shows and stuff like that. I want to have a very fair, discussion on these things. Look, his trading, first off, is, amazing. What he did having the 6th pick and then getting a future first-round pick from Miami, still being able to draft Devontae Smith. It's a genius trade. You were basically going from 6 to 12 to 10. You gained a first-round pick, Devontae Smith. It's great. I still would have taken Micah Parsons. That's another whole subject. But that's just me. But the fan in me overreacts sometimes. But let's be honest. It's funny. I actually think Howie Roseman's biggest weakness is not drafting. I think it's cap management. He is well above average, and that is the truth. Above average, he did win a Super Bowl in 2017. And we fell apart. Obviously, there's a lot of reasons why we fell apart. Disagreement between him, Doug Peterson, the quarterback situation. There's lots of reasons why the Eagles, situation fell apart so quickly. But he's been able to take that situation, like I just said earlier in the show, and turn this team into a playoff team like that one season. I said it, George. I know you're watching. You said this was going to be a 3 to 4 year rebuild. I don't think many people thought. I said it earlier. It's a retool. You can fix a team quicker in the NFL than any other sport, and nobody could have said, with unless you're like the super overreacting fan, that there's definitely some of those guys that have YouTube channels that thought we were going to win 12, 13 games this year and all that stuff. But that's overreacting on a daily basis, not just on overreacting money. He turned this team around very fast. And that's gives him. I don't know if I would rank him. I know some people put him in the top 5 of GMs. Maybe I'd have to really check harder on that. I would take him. Yeah, exactly. But that's because we're old school. And I want to put you. You said you want to get me on record saying certain things. I'm getting George on record saying he was wrong about the turnaround this year. Absolutely. But back to this. Yeah, we're old school people. We want defense. We want smash mouth. We want great defenses. That's just what we want. I love trenches. I love offensive linemen, defensive linemen, linebackers, stuff like that. Yeah. Okay. There we go. Yeah, I got you. I'm going to definitely ask. I'm sure we will be talking about this again. But Howie Roseman as a whole, his cap management is probably his worst aspect. It's what he's known for, but it's definitely his worst aspect, because then we get stuck in situations where this year, which actually it's insane, the coaching job and the performance by the players. We have about $65 million of a $200 million cap in dead money this year. All the other teams in the top 5 in dead money this year are all outside the playoffs looking in. The fact that this team was $65 million playing for other teams, $35 million of it just to one quarterback playing for another team that's playing for a playoff spot right now. Dead money. The fact that this team has been able to put together a 9-7 record at this point, potentially 10 wins this season, maybe 9-10, whatever you want to call it. That's a testament to the players, the leaders on this team, the coaching staff holding this team together, especially when we started out 2-5. I mean, that's a testament there. But that's on Howie Roseman putting this team in that hole, which means that his cap management situation, we could have potentially traded Fletcher Cox. We still may in the offseason. I don't know all the cap hits and stuff like that for next year, but we couldn't trade Fletcher Cox at the trade deadline this year because of the dead cap that we would have taken for next year because of him kicking some money down the line, because he restructured him at the wrong time. So it's really crazy. I've always joked that you can go find any Harvard business law graduate to run the cap for the Eagles. You just need people to pick better players and make less mistakes. But you look at his drafts over the last 4 years. There's not many. I mean, there's the 2 or 3 really big misses. The Jalen Regers, of the world, the Ortega-Whitesides. So you got the 2 or 3 really big misses, which overshadow the 14 or 15 really strong picks that he has made. So Howie Roseman, to me, confidence level, he's going to get, as long as Nick Sirianni keeps winning, he's going to get plenty of time to continue to go with this team. I don't think he has done as bad of a job as we all overreact to saying. He's not as great, I think, as people think he is, but he's definitely earned, as I continue to grow as a podcaster, as I, continue to grow as a guy talking sports, to people out there, I'm more confident in saying, being more realistic versus overreacting, and he's not as bad as we make him out to be. He's a really strong general manager at this point. But he also got a Pro Bowl left tackle in round 7. Yeah, I mean that's one situation. Most of the time that does not happen. That's a really rare situation, and I'm not going to overreact to this, but maybe it's an overreaction statement. I'm going to put Jordan Mailata's success more on Jeff Stoutland as the offensive line coach than Howie Roseman, being this great GM that just found this gem. From what I've heard, I just recently read an article, I think it was actually today or yesterday, that Jeff Stoutland petitioned the team to go scout Jordan Mailata, and he came back and said, "Yo, get me this guy in the 7th round. I can make him, something." So I'm really, putting more of the onus on the Jordan Mailata on the Jeff Stoutland than Howie Roseman on that one. Again, that was I forget which website I read that on last night or today, but that's what I'm going to go with there on that situation. But that was the end of my questions there. Thank you to George and everybody else that sent them in. I think we'll do that a little bit more often. Take more questions, do more fan bags. I'm not a fan of going shows solo, but I've now gone 48 minutes solo here, so this has been a lot of fun so far. Stoutland needs a statue outside this. Absolutely. Has there ever been an offensive line coach, just straight offensive line coach for his entire career, not moving up the ranks to head coach at some point in their career? Has there ever been a position coach that got a gold jacket and went into the Hall of Fame? I don't know. But if there hasn't been, Jeff Stoutland should absolutely. And that is not overreacting. The fact that he took a guy, it's one thing when people talk about Joel Embiid and the Sixers, where he didn't start playing basketball till he was 15 or 16. He still did come over here and play prep high school basketball for a year. He did go to college for a year and play basketball. So he had time to develop before he played in the NBA. Jordan Mailata didn't even know what NFL football. He did not know one rule. He had never watched even a minute of NFL football. He had heard about it. He probably had seen some highlights, on Sports Center International in Australia. Dude, this guy was a rugby player, had no football experience whatsoever, and he is now he should be a Pro Bowl left tackle this year. I think he got robbed not being the left tackle this year. But the fact that he's been able to pull off what he did with that guy, give that guy a gold jacket right now. Give him a lifetime contract to be Eagles offensive line coach. Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm doing that. I'm definitely doing that. Absolutely. All right, so that I think that let me check my other screen here, see if any more questions came in after the show started here. Let's see here. No, it doesn't look like we got any more questions. So the question and answer segment is over. Absolutely. Real quick, Sixers do play the Spurs tonight in Philadelphia. Sixers are 6.5-point favorite. Matisse Thybulle is off the COVID list, so we get one more of our regular guys back. Sixers have won 5 in a row. Spurs have lost 4 of their last 5. They got a bunch of guys out because of COVID protocols as well. The Sixers will leave. Yeah, I know. Hey, George, thank you for checking in. Thank you for being such a great supporter of the show. I greatly appreciate it. I'm wrapping this up really quick anyway. I got to go clean a couple inches of snow off my car anyway. I'm just going to touch on the Sixers for a brief minute here. So have a great day, George. Be well and enjoy your weekend. But anyway, yeah, Sixers, Spurs have lost 4 of the last 5. Again, the Sixers should win this game. The Spurs are 15-22. They're not a great team. This game here to me has one key to it. And this is a game, DeJounte Murray, point guard, San Antonio Spurs, a guy that a lot of people want the Sixers to trade Ben Simmons for. This is an opportunity for the Sixers to get Daryl Morey, to get Doc Rivers, to get, we forget about Elton Brand, he's still technically the GM of this team, to get front row live eyes on DeJounte Murray. Is he really the guy they want for Ben Simmons to start the trade package? I'm pretty sure that offer or some kind of package around there is still on the table. Ben Simmons for Murray. I personally, basically Murray is Ben Simmons that is willing to take a shot. He's not a great shooter. He shoots under 70% from the free throw line, 44%, from the field. He scores 18 points a game. He's a triple-double machine. This is the moment where they could see him in person. And I think that's key. We want a Ben Simmons trade to happen. I still want it to happen sooner rather than later. And this is an opportunity. He's not my top choice. I know a lot of people like him. He would probably not even land in my top 5. And I definitely would not be doing a deal just straight up with the San Antonio Spurs because I don't think Murray for Ben Simmons is enough. We're coming back to Eagles questions here on the show. If Gann leaves, would you promote one of your quarters? Jonathan Gann's not leaving. He is not getting a head coaching position. That was an overblown article there. Guarantee that. This is an opportunity to really see what DeJounte Murray really is. I'll be watching the game. I'll be watching it closely to see how he performs. But I have all expectations that the Sixers win this game. I think the 6.5-point line is a little low. Getting Matisse Thybulle back from the COVID protocols helps this team a lot. Gets Danny Green back to the bench where he belongs. Matisse back to the starting lineup. So I'm really excited about that and this game. So we'll break that down next week and how it goes. They got tonight, then they got the weekend off, then they play again on Monday, another winnable game. So let's see if they can get this 5-game winning streak to 6, 7, 8, 9 games in a row and start to separate themselves from that 6th, 7th, 8th seat in the Eastern Conference. We'll see. But I really want to see a trade made soon because we really need to improve this roster. I do not want to waste this season of Joel Embiid. So that's it. I've got to go. I got a Tahoe to go clean snow off of now, and I got to get to work by 10 o'clock somehow. So we're going to wrap up Trending in the AM right there. Thank you all very much for tuning in. Again, Eagles play the Cowboys. I didn't even give a prediction. Eagles play the Cowboys on Sunday. I don't even know how to make a prediction for the game because I don't know who's playing. If we start a majority of our starters or rest a majority of our starters and they play a majority of their starters for a majority of the game, I don't think we stand a chance to win the game. But I would absolutely love to see this close. I can't make a prediction. Maybe follow me on Twitter at Bearded Knowledge. And when we get closer to kickoff, maybe Saturday afternoon, once we know who's playing, who's active, who's inactive, et cetera, I can give you a better prediction. But fanboy me will say, let's go Eagles and let's win this game. But again, this is Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media, brought to you by Manscaped, the leader in men's grooming products, the GOAT and below-the-waist maintenance. Check them out, manscaped.com. Use promo code TRENDING at checkout for 20% off, free shipping. And it lets them know I sent you here, the Beard sent you. And it also, it helps continue that partnership we have with Manscaped. And make sure you're tapped in on YouTube to all DSM shows. Make sure you turn the notifications on the YouTube page. Last night we had Ty Johnson on the Faithful Fanatic show from 97.5, The Fanatic, Sixers Outsider, talk to Eagles Sixers with Dylan, Gint, and Scotty. Great episode. Go back and catch the replay on that. Ty Johnson's great guy. Great to have him come and give us some time, to be on our network. So on that note, I'm going to say go Birds. I'm going to say let's have a great, safe weekend. Let's win. Let's get prepared for the weekend. I cannot wait for Overreaction Monday next week with my man Mark Moscatelli. Tuesday, I got Jimmy Smith from On the Road to Victory coming on to talk Eagles and playoffs with me. We got a jam-packed week coming up on the DSM Media. Playoffs are almost here. It's time to get pumped up for that. So everybody have a great day and go Birds.